Yes. So what you are busy?
So very good morning to all. And today we will be discussing section 65. Arupji had sent a message in the group to have a volunteer for section 65. So it appears that many of us are busy in audits, in GSTAT filing, not in audits, in GSTAT
Not, yeah.
filing. And coming on the platform of GST faculty ICI, not ICI, GST faculty, requires some preparation. So it appears that many of the members are busy in GSTAT filing. So Venugopalji took the initiative to start the discussion. And what is required on this platform is only to commence the discussion. Rest all the members come and share their views and update if anything is left from the side of the person who is initiating the discussion. So on 65, we have taken it in a manner wherein Vinuji would be starting the discussion. And all other members would be adding their perspective for section 65 and what they are observing. So, starting with today's session, I hand over the session to Venuji. No introduction is required for Venuji. So, starting with today's session and handing over the session to Venuji. And I would be sharing the screen and handling the PPT.
Thank you so much, Arpit bhai. And the friends, the way I have worked out is I went section by section and looked at what are all the things that we need to be. I'm sure each one of us would have handled at least 20 audits. That is the minimum we would have handled. So maybe some things we wouldn't have been mindful of, or we are ignorant, or certain things that we should be considering, including from DPDP. I have put my thoughts and I have presented it each section by section. We have questions listed. So let's look at the presentation. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Can you share? Yes. So next slide. Next slide. Yeah. Now the word audit is in 213, and then we see it in 65. If we do the literal review of the word audit, the scope of audit is examination. Now, the word examination itself has a, a, a depth. Now, each word is important. So, audit is restricted to examination, is something which now investigation versus examination is something we will discuss a little later. But the scope of audit is only examination of records. Now, records, we should read this with section 35 and returns and other documents that are maintained. Now we will go back to again section 71 and where there are some list of documents which are beyond 35, which are maintained and furnished by the taxable person. Now these are the one which are covered under the scope of the audit. In order to, as per the audit, to check the correctness of turnover declared, taxes paid, refund claimed, ITC availed, and assess the overall compliance of the provisions of the Act. The way the audit definition is drafted is a normal verification which we do in the kind of a statutory audit in any audit obligations. So audit is not a detailed investigation, is an explicit understanding from by virtue of this definition according to me. Anyone would want to have a comment before we move to next slide?
Venuji, this is one very important aspect of the scope of audit, that the auditor who has come for audit cannot carry out the verification of stock.
Yeah.
Because he is only there for examination of record returns and
Examination.
other documents.
Absolutely.
And he cannot say that I want to verify the fixed assets, I want to verify the stock which you have, because you are coming for audit for 2023-24, my stock is for current date, so you cannot carry out the
You cannot.
verification stock as on date.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's move. Next slide. Now, we have department.
Venuji, I just
Yes,
want to interrupt and to ask one thing here.
Yeah.
See what happened in one of the our case in the audit, who is the tours and travel agent. So they have various fleets with them. They were using some restricted input like ethanol and all this thing, certain input they are using in their diesel while using the fleets. So that expenses is debited to the profit and loss account. The auditor has observed that and they referred the matter to the Ministry of Environment. Whether they allowed to do this? I hope I am.
Yeah. I really don't know why ethanol is used by a tours and travel agent.
That is different part. That is different.
I am trying to.
They have the
Okay,
fleets. They have various fleets.
we will park the question. We will come back to the same in the scope again 65(1). What they can do, what they cannot do. We'll come back.
Okay.
And
So
Venuji,
the
one thing
audit-
which one question also we need to address is that while carrying out an audit under 65, whether the audit officer has the power
Yeah.
to issue someone under section 70.
70, yes. There are a lot of questions I have listed. We will go question by question. Yes. Okay.
Can the audit officer ask for product samples to take classification?
Yes, that is also listed. We will discuss. We'll complete 65(1) and we'll start getting into questions. Okay. So now we also now need to distinguish between 65 and 66 audit. At what point we can come into 66? I will bring Unni when we start deliberating on 66. Thankfully, our 35(5) has been removed. So let's move to the first point of the audit. Read with rule 101. Next slide. Yeah. So firstly, the audit will be initiated by the officer who is commissioner or person authorized by him, either by way of general or specific order. And he will be undertaking the audit of any registered person for such period, such frequency, such manner. So it's all the three: such period, such frequency, such manner, as may be prescribed. Now, when we go to the rules, we may think that, okay, rules will define all of this. Nothing of this will be is defined in the rules also. So the question that comes is, next slide, the authorized by him. RPG, we can go to the next slide. Yeah. So the authorized by him, when we say, how do you check the authorization could be the first question. Then we have also seen the aspects that needs to be covered in rule 101. Should the scope be restricted to what is verified, which is outward supply, inward supply, availment of credit or payment of tax? So should the audit be restricted to this? These are the questions. Next slide. And the period of the audit, is it financial year, part thereof, or multiple periods? The answer is again multiple periods. This is what all section 65(1) says. Now let's get into details of section 65(1) by answering each question one by one. Next slide. First, the power which is there in 65(1), how do we read it? Is it an administrative power or is a quasi-judicial power? So, meaning the audit is happening in the normal way, which is a statutory function. We know quasi-judicial is only the tribunal related. For the first one, because it is coming by a generic order or a specific order, what is your view? The power which the department is holding under this section, what is the type of power the department is having? I want to hear the views of the members. Hello? Am I there or am I
So,
lost?
yeah, no, you are there. You are there.
Yeah. So,
So,
yeah.
Vinuji, if we see that whatever decisions which have come, and if we go through section 65, so it requires a process to arrive at the decision that whether the compliance was proper or not. And if the compliance was not proper, then the appropriate action can be initiated under section 73, 74 or 67, whatever is the section. And once it has been concluded that the compliance is proper and no notice is issued, that means a decision has been taken and a conclusive view has been formed. And that cannot be reopened again by issuing a notice under on the same subject matter separately by the proper officer. So, in terms of 65, we can say that the officer is framing a view which becomes a binding precedent on all the persons concerned.
Right.
And that is what is also being alleged in various decisions and have come across that once audit is done and no discrepancy is found, then on the same subject matter, the notice cannot be issued.
So now the point which Arpit Bhai is raising between 61, 67, 65, though there is no hierarchy, can we make a presumption that 65 is higher than 67 and 67 is higher than 61? So if you have an ASMT 10, you can still have an investigation for some matter. If you have an investigation, you can still have an audit for some matters. But once the audit is done, you cannot have one more an ASMT 10 where the audit is completed. Can an assumption be made? That is my view, by the way. So what is the view of the house? I am of the view, once the audit is done, you cannot come with one ASMT 10.
Yeah, the issue is that when an audit or ASMT 10 is being done, since it is only an examination of records.
Right.
So if there's any subsequent to issuance of an ASMT 10 or an completion of audit, there's an information which is not coming out of the record, but which is coming somewhere from a third party inspection or third party report, then it can be open that this information was not there and a notice can be issued and conclusion of the audit would not be a binding precedent. But if the information is coming from the books of accounts, then in such case, that matter cannot be opened by issuance of a notice.
Yeah, but ASMT 10 can only be going by the records.
Yes. So that's why in one of the decisions, one of the high courts have held that once an ASMT 10 has been issued, then on the same subject matter, 73 notice cannot be issued. But if ASMT 10 has been issued, a notice under section 74 can be issued if some new information has come to the knowledge, which was not coming from the information available on the portal.
Right. Yeah. So just to answer the first position, since 65 is primarily an administrative and more from the fact verification, it definitely not a quasi-judicial proceedings. So the officer will merely verify the records, examine the compliance and communicate the findings. And hence 65 is related, moving to 73 and 74 and 107, which are quasi-judicial or judicial appellate things. So 65 power is administrative related power. Now, why I have brought this is on the scope of the information which they are going to ask at a later point. I have coupled questions coming up. So that is the reason I want to bring it the distinction that this is purely administrative power. Because it is administrative power and not judicial power, it cannot be arbitrary. See, judicial power can always be arbitrary. So you can, like, judges can interpret in any way and get any of the points. So audit is not even investigation. Okay, sometimes the audit officers behave like an investigation. That's a different thing. But it is an administration in nature, so it has to restrict to what has been asked. Now, having said that, so is audit merely verification of records or can it be investigation? The answer is no. Audit has to be verification of records and it cannot be an investigation since it is an administrative in nature. And can it be traveling beyond books of accounts? Answer is no. Because the definition of 213, the scope of audit is restricted to the documents which I have maintained. Something which I have not maintained, or though even though I like someone is asking me to produce a document which I have not maintained, so I don't need to produce. Let's say someone is asking me to reconcile this. I have not reconciled, so I don't need to give. So the obligation of providing information is not required. And administrative powers should always be reasonableness, non-arbitrariness, and the doctrine of proportionality should be maintained. Is my view.
But
Anything before we
Vinay,
go to next set of questions?
Yeah, I have a
Vinay, if
query
we
here.
go through Rule 101,
Yeah.
it requires that a
Okay.
draft audit report has to be issued to the taxpayer, and he would make a submission, and considering the submission, the final audit report would be issued. So that involved decision making based upon the submission which have been made.
Right.
And once a submission have been made and points have been dropped, that becomes a binding precedent on all the officers. So, in my opinion, it's not a purely administrative power because it requires some decision making, and that decision becomes a binding on other officers.
Yeah, this is what I was actually planning to say. The problem here now I'm seeing is that AMC decides certain matters and relies upon prior AMC meetings to decide the query that is being raised in subsequent AMC meetings. So decisions are taken by the AMC, and both the participants, the taxpayer and the auditee's role is actually adjudged by what is the AMC's decision.
Okay.
Because
Sir,
if it would have been an administrative power, then their decision would not be binding on the other officers. And on same subject matter, notices could have been issued.
yeah, Arpit ji, if you are saying it's a decision, can it be appealed? Because every decision or order can be appealed. If you are having a view that it is a decision, can appeal be filed against this?
No, what we have to see is that if any adverse decision is contemplated against a taxpayer, then the notice has to be issued. If the compliance is found proper, then no notice is issued. So that means if we go through armor security and if we see what they have defined as a logical conclusion, they have said that not every decision involves issuance of a notice under section 73-74. If the matter
Exactly,
is
Arpit bhai.
concluded
So
on
that is
file,
why-
it would be treated as a logical conclusion.
Yeah, so that is where my confusion is. See, the ADT 02 is an audit officer view, need not be a proper officer view, and he can still drop the matter. So the 73 need not be parroting ADT 02, isn't it?
Yes, because in that case, it's similar to what the investigation is issued a show cause notice. Then
Right.
the assessing officer can drop it. But if the investigation has dropped it, in armor security, Supreme Court has treated as a logical conclusion.
Right.
So that is how in my opinion, we need to see 65. that if the audit has concluded it, then
Okay.
it's a logical conclusion. But if the audit finds something not in compliance with the provision of the statute, they issue a notice, but still the proper officer of that jurisdictional officer can drop it. One
Okay.
important thing which comes to the question which what I was planning to raise is 65 is an audit conducted by the commissioner or an officer authorized by the commissioner. So even though the ADT 02 is being issued by an assistant commissioner, but in a meeting it is being approved by the commissioner audit. So
Right.
so if supposedly commissioner audit has come to a conclusion that this tax rate is proper, but
Right.
now this is a logical conclusion that this tax rate is proper, but the commissioner administration does not confers to the view that this tax rate is proper. Now, if this is a logical conclusion, but the commission administration does not find it proper, then where and how this decision would be challenged? Because it cannot be 108 because it has been the view has been taken under 65 by the commission audit, and commission audit and administration are similar rank officer. It cannot be 108. It cannot be
Correct.
112 because it is not an appeal authority. So somewhere down the line, in my opinion, once a matter is concluded under 65, it becomes a binding and no further remedial action from the point of the department is there once an audit has concluded something.
Right. Okay, agreed.
Because this is one issue which we are taking
We'll
and
move
we
to
are making
next
it
slide.
part of our submission. So views of the house on this point.
I think the house is with
I got
you.
you.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I think Veeruji, then we can move to 2.
We'll move to the next slide.
Yes.
Okay, so I was of view that it is more in administrative nature, and considering that, I have my questions and framed and written in the slides. But yes, some points of Arpit and Unni is making me to rethink on the points that I have written. Yeah, let's move to the next one. Now, the scopes. The examination now during the course, can the officer get a third party records? Like, can we get a confirmation of a third party balance like how we do in the statutory audit? Or say that, okay, I want to see the director's bank statement. Okay, I think the profit that you are declaring is lower. I want to compare the profit of your group. Now, can the scope be extended because that, okay, officer is not satisfied? Can the scope be extended? My answer to this is a clear no. The scope has to be with the records information that I have and I am maintaining. It cannot be extended to anything else other than what I have or what I am producing.
Suppose
When
there are
I say
distinct
external
persons.
records, I will say vendor invoice. I will say SOW. So, which I have is permitted. What I don't have, seeking an information either on 150 and comparing with this, that scope will not be available with the audit officer. So, anyone wants to add anything to the first question?
Can distinct persons records be treated as third party records?
Yes.
But 71
Even
talks about financial statements as a whole.
71 asks for financial statement, but it doesn't ask for distinct person records. So Chennai profit cannot equivalent to Cochin profit. So my nature of operations can change. So that cannot even be a basis for me to take a decision or an assessment. So the audit is happening to Delhi branch. Delhi branch has its own risk and rewards. So a distinct person records would also be a third person records and cannot be part of the scope of the audit is my view.
If it was an ISD that is being audited, the records of the distinct persons are required to assess the turnover computation as per the distribution mechanism. So can that be called for?
Turnover to the limited extent of the turnover what is disclosed in GSTR 9C or 9 table 5.
Can ISD books of accounts be audited? Because all the demand and recovery is only from the other party, not from the ISD.
Karnataka is doing it. About a year ago, Sujata madam shared me an ADT2 for an ISD.
Okay. But is it legally possible?
The audit of a registered person, ISD is also a registered person. So audit of ISD is possible.
Probably the result of that audit, maybe the notices will be issued directly to the recipient only. For any recovery that may be directly notice can be given to the recipient to whom it has been distributed.
If I remember correctly, they had a final audit para where they directed the jurisdictional proper officer to proceed under 122(1) for the ISD also for wrong distribution.
Yes, if we go through section 21, then in such case, the excess distribution has to be recovered from the recipient. And I agree with Unniji that the penalty for excess distribution can be levied under section 122 on the distributor. But the recovery has to be made from the recipient. Therefore, the officer of the recipient is entitled under the statute to ask for the records of the distributor for analyzing that whether any excess credit has been distributed or not.
I think this is a more interesting area from the legality point of view, because the audit of ISD is permitted, but the recovery mechanism and procedure for a wrong distribution, let's say ineligible credit has been distributed by ISD, and the recipient in no manner can know whether it is eligible or not eligible, because it's only ISD whose job he has to do. Now, a notice is being served to all the recipient to pay it. The legality of that from the ISD perspective, I think we will do a proper one more the session, because some under which section, which power that recovery is happening through 122, how it needs to be done. It is for sure can be done, but how the legality of it, I am still exploring. If someone has something, we can throw a light. But audit of
Venuji, there is a circular number 71. There is circular number 71 on this issue, which explains that the penalty under section 122(19) can be levied on the distributor and the recovery has to be made. That is in line with section 21. Whether it is legal or not, that is something, but the law lays down that recovery has to be made by the recipient. Now, that whether that recovery to be made from the recipient would be on the basis of the order being passed by the officer of the recipient or basis upon the order of the distributor. Because if the recovery is being made from the recipient on the basis of order of the proper office of the distributor, then who will be? A question would be
right.
This is one issue which we can take, but coming back to 65. Hello.
I think third-party records cannot be called off during the audit. Whenever there are certain situation arises, what generally officer does is that they create a geo kind of document and they forward it to the respective range so that they can collect all those evidence. They can raise this point separately, but during the audit, they refrain to ask for. Even if they ask, they you very well we can say we cannot produce it. We have in the audit process.
Now, let me think from the revenue point of view. Let us assume that I took third-party records, they responded, and based on which I got details for a shock cause notice. That is again put up for the draft audit observation, and the final audit report is given. A shock cause notice independently given. Where is the taxpayer biased? Because they are able to rebut it, and can the mere lack of procedure vitiate the finding that is there in the shock cause notice?
Niji, I was coming to that part only because if we go through section 2, subsection 13, it means examination of the record, returns, and other documents maintained or furnished by the registered person under this act or rules made thereunder or under any other law for the time in force. That means the taxpayer is only required to produce the record which are being maintained by him or which are required to be maintained under the statute or under any other statute. But the officer is not restricted or is not prevented from carrying out an inquiry to verify those records from a third party. He can voluntarily carry out an inquiry. Yes, the taxpayer cannot be asked, but 2 subsection 13 does not restrict that the officer cannot carry out the inquiry to verify those records. The restriction is only from calling of the records from the taxpayer, but the officer is free to call the records or carry out an inquiry, independent inquiry from third party source. This is my view that it is not a two-way restriction. It is only a one-way restriction, the definition of audit for asking the record from the taxpayer.
Okay.
RPG, I'll suggest that we move on. Otherwise, we come back to the previous slide whether audit can be extended to inquiry and difference between inquiry and inquiry, E and I. We will go into all those discussions. Will come out from section 65. That is my suggestion. All these are valid points, but we'll be going off tangent.
Okay, we will move to the next one now. No, previous slide, sorry, previous slide. Unni's question on whether the audit can be extended to valuation dispute, classification dispute, and anti-evasion inquiries. So, firstly, valuation dispute, yes, because audit specifically is about verifying the turnover declared, the taxes paid, exemptions claimed. So the valuation has a direct impact on all of these points. So I am of the view audit can touch upon valuation disputes. So they will examine discounts, reimbursement, the related party valuation, pure agent, free supplies, all this can be done. But officer can only go to the record that is available. When it comes to the classification, again, yes, because the maybe works contract versus pure service, I have claimed an exemption. Restaurant versus outdoor catering earlier had with ITC 18%, 5%. Renting versus licensing. Software as a good or software as a services. Composite supply, mixed supply, anything can come up. So I am of the view, yes, that is permitted. Now, when it comes to the third point of anti-evasion inquiries, since there is a separate section for anti-evasion, anti-profiteering, I am of the view that the audit cannot detect possible evasion. Audit is not 67 investigation or research. So the anti-evasion inquiries cannot be possible in the audit is my view. So these are my answers for these three questions. Anyone wants to say anything before we move to the next slide?
Yes, Venuji. Relating to anti-evasion, suppose in case of builders, the value, what is charged by the builder, it may be in cash or check. So they cannot go beyond what is there in the books of accounts. So
they cannot.
Yeah. So that is, we can say anti-evasion is not part of the audit. It is part of
Yeah.
investigation only.
Venu sir, if there is a report which is shared by anti-evasion team, assume they have done investigation and other things, they are not issued a show cause notice, but anti-evasion report they have prepared and file was sent it to the audit team which was doing the audit. Then
Right.
what is the situation?
Then audit can consider the document, but audit cannot do investigation.
What generally audit team does is they collect all the document. They in fact inform the concerned officer about the findings, and that concerned officer takes actions. Sometimes some third party information also is gathered during the audit, and that is probably forwarded to the range officers to take appropriate action in that case.
I don't think even the responsibility of the audit officer to go in, but okay, that's the beyond the scope. I will skip that.
But we have observed, sir, that they are doing this thing.
Yeah.
They are collecting third party data, whatever they are finding, and they are forwarding it to the respective. And the officer probably in the show cause notice even also mentions this, that these are the findings forwarded during by the audit of such and such party, and based on this anti evasion action is taken against them.
Right. Okay. Let's move to the next slide.
Vinuji, what I feel is that since the audit is of the records, therefore, if the valuation of facts is not correct, it can be carried out by the audit officer, because what he is assessing is what has been shown in the books. But supposedly there is an investigation and it is seen that some purchases were made without any invoice being received. Now, this is something which is not part of the books of accounts. It is beyond the books of accounts. And in such case, the anti-evasion is only allowed to carry it forward. Audit cannot carry it forward. So something which is coming from the books of accounts can be analyzed by the audit officer. But transactions which are outside the books of accounts, that cannot be analyzed by the audit officer.
So to understand this carefully, can we say that if, let's say, some bills or invoices or loose paper is discovered at the time of audit, so on that they cannot take action, but they can forward it to the concerned officer, and that concerned officer can take this action. Right, sir?
Yes.
So I had a case where the third-party intelligence department forwarded unaccounted purchase data to be considered by the audit team based on government available records. So the audit, after verification of stock registers, compared this to the third-party information and proposed 74 with 35.6. Stating that you have already given us your stock registers, we have compared to this. We are also giving a copy for that to you if you have anything to say to disprove the same. But since it is not apparently produced here and the other data being validated data, this is going to be assessed under 35.6 thread with 74 as deemed supplies.
Got it. RPG, next slide. Okay. Now, generic or specific order is mandatory. So what you have is ADT 01 and sometimes email. So portal to pehle nahi tha, abhi portal hai. So the question that comes is, what is the safeguard for the taxpayer to know that yes, okay, there has been a specific instruction received for the audit? And that is something, how do you know that this is not a audit engagement without any authorization from the commissioner? Because you will never receive the on record that, okay, here is my authority to audit you, the authorization as there. What you have is ADT 01. So should there be a copy of reference of authorization under section 65? Should it be specifically looked for? What is the view of the house?
Two things. One, the commissioner has assigned his powers under 65 to the ADC audits and the ADC audits or the plan that has been specified by him will be what constitutes the required authorization, and it's the ADC audits orders that are referred in the ADT1. Second, ADT1 is nowadays generally served in the portal year-wise.
Yeah. So ADT1 served in the portal, according to me, it can be considered as the authorization, but should it be reasoned and taxpayer specific? My view answer is no. You don't even need to be informed like why your case has been picked for audit. Need not be reasoned. Reasoning for audit is not required, but ADT01, if not in the portal, calling for authorization is a valid ask according to my view. You will generally find after the audit done for one period, immediately the officer will call for audit. Okay, we will do audit for the next period. Am I lost?
No, you are audible, sir.
Yeah. So I think Arpit sir is got dropped.
Yes.
Yeah. No problem.
Generally, what we have observed is that they do not give any reasons for the audit. But exceptionally, I have found that some of the state department which they are issuing the notice, they have mentioned that less cash payment, and due to that, they have initiated this audit. They sometimes do this kind of mistake, and they mentioned that due to the less electronic cash payment, they have initiated this audit.
Yeah, that is first time I'm hearing. I have not seen in the past.
Even us also, sir. This is in the state of Chhattisgarh. They have done it.
Oh, okay.
Actually, no, it is there in Kerala also. I've seen the guidelines on how they selected audit. This is one of the parameters they've checked for.
Right. So we will move to the next slide. The documents for the audit. Now, generally ADT01 lists lot of information that they want, and we have seen most of the ADT01 information is a cyclostyle thing. Arpit, by next slide.
Yeah, Venuji, one thing, if anyone is from Maharashtra, because what I have seen is that sometimes the jurisdiction officer is issuing a notice to carry out an audit under Section 65. So, is there any circular which has authorized the jurisdiction officer to carry out the audit who is distinct from the audit division?
Can a jurisdictional officer do an audit? I am surprised.
To different jurisdictional officer, not of the concerned taxpayer, but different jurisdictional officer is doing audit. He is not designated as audit.
Arpit Bhai, Arpit Bhai is saying jurisdictional officer. Yeah.
Initially, they were doing
Anish
the
bhai.
same thing. Yes, they were doing the jurisdictional officer only was doing the audit. Now, of last couple of years, I believe, they have created an audit division, and now there has been a separate audit power has been given. And typically, when we go to the High Court, at that time, Justice Sonak was there. So he was rejecting all these appeals, saying that you plead before the judicial officer or appellate authority, don't come to High Court. That same person is doing audit and same person is doing issuing SCN and same person is doing adjudication.
No, the issue which I was raising is recently we received a notice from Maharashtra wherein we had challenged it that the officer said that I want to conduct an audit for 2023 and you are required to bring me the records. We asked for the authorization under Section 65. That is whether you are authorized by the commissioner to carry out the audit. The issue was not whether the same person can do, whether the jurisdiction officer can on his own issue a notice under 65 calling for records for the audit to be conducted. Then when we raised an objection, he transferred it to the relevant audit officer, stating that they will now conduct the audit. So when we initially asked, they said that we are authorized to carry out any audit by a general instruction of the commissioner. So yes, Venuji, we can move forward now.
Yeah, next slide. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
now the data that has been called. Oh, Arpit, I think you have opened. Okay, complete. Then we'll go to. I had shared the other PT. No problem. Is continue करेंगे. So the period of audit. No problem. Period of audit. Multiple period. Next slide को आ जाइए. So this is now agreed that a multiple period is permitted and it can be at the place of business. I have put the questions in the next slide. See, like in Bangalore, the officer from Mysore sends a letter saying that your audit has been taken. Please come and meet me. You are here in Bangalore, but officer from Mysore. So you are in Delhi, officer from Gurgaon is calling. Okay, though it has become a different state. Or like you are in Pune, but officer from Nashik is calling you. You are in Mumbai, officer from Thane is asking to come and meet you. Now, the audit can be at two places, either at the place of the premises or principal place of the business or at the tax officer's place. Can you refrain saying that, okay, you will not go?
No.
In my opinion, no.
Okay, when the jurisdiction is far off, in my opinion, yes. In our case, we had written to commissioner saying that we have no issue you coming to our office, but we cannot come. We do not have office in that place. We cannot come all the way traveling from one city to another city, produce the documents. We request you either to assign it to an audit officer in the city or you come to our premises for the audit.
Venu sir, I had a case where, not in audit, but in the case of investigation, where Kanjangadu, which is in the northern tip of Kerala, took the investigation of a person who's in the southern tip of Kerala, that is Trivandrum. So they were finding it difficult and we approached the High Court. And the High Court said, both these places are within the Kerala, so what's your problem? Please go and attend.
Investigation is different from audit.
Sir, even audit commissionates are same. I mean, audit commissionates are same, even though they may be a different distance of the city. But somehow the jurisdictional audit office is same, sir.
Venu sir, the only problem what we are facing is because West Commissionerate falls under a Mysore audit division.
Correct.
So appeal and audit will be done by Mysore only because it is within the notification. I don't think we can question that.
The same thing is happening in Rajasthan also, wherein a centralized audit commissioner is at Jaipur and the divisional audit commissioner are in the respective divisional headquarters. So the big taxpayers are required to be audited at Jaipur for the entire state. And therefore, we raised an objection, but it was stated that since the revenue involved is high, therefore we want a specialized wing to carry out the audit and you are required to the officers would come to your place for initial conduct of audit, but subsequently you have to come to the commissionerate and get the audit done.
So closure, post-audit observation is okay, but carrying out, we have made a representation. So what happened is they have converted from the desk audit to they have come to the client's premises and they made a visit audit.
So your officer was considerate.
Okay. So we made a request that saying we do not have an office, which we choose either you come down or you change the officer. Then they said that no, we will only come down. They came, concluded the audit. That's why I have this question.
Because in Rajasthan is the second largest state in terms of distance, but still they are conducting the audit. And frankly, we know that they come to the office for 1 or 2 days, and all the records are required to be carried out in their respective offices.
Right. So this brings the next question, that can they seize the documents? So this, I think we have to mute someone. So can the department seize the original documents? The answer is no, which is obvious. Everyone will say that. But
Yeah,
can
Venuji, you can unmute yourself. I am.
Yeah. So
Yes.
department can definitely not seize any of the documents under 65. They can only take a copy. No original document can be taken by the department officer under section 65. What the taxpayer can give is only a copy and not the original documents. So here I thought that it is important that we need to be aware of little DPDP related provisions. Since the confidentiality do matter, there is a digital data. Department now frequently asks, send me tally data. This is one standard point in the ADT 01. If you have a tally data, send me tally data. Or Excel version of the financials. Or give me trial balance, opening, debit, credit, and closing in the soft copy format. So there are various informations which department asks. Now, should taxpayer oblige in giving it? My view, yes. Because it is maintained, so he cannot say, I will not give the soft copy. In my view, the soft copy, if asked for, it has to be given. And this is something which is happening frequently, and more so with more knowledge, whether they require or not, they are asking it. Going deeper in, before I go deeper into the digital data, anyone have any questions or any points in this slide?
Venuji, in my opinion, the tally data, if they are asking, then see, there is a very clearly laid down guideline that how the electronic data has to be extracted and being used, and it has to be done in the presence of the taxpayer. See, what is the difference between the electronic data and the physical data that by way of printout which we give? When we give a physical data by way of printout, it is signed and it cannot be altered by any mode because it is printed in. Now, when I am sending a tally data, supposedly I have given it in a pen drive. Now, on the basis of tally data, they carry out an audit, they take a printout and they said that this is your data and you have corrected. I can always say that this is an altered data because I did not provide. Where is the copy of the original data which you have provided? Then again, the question of hash total would come, that whether what was the hash total of the data which was given at the time initially, and then what is the hash total of data which is present. So in the matter wherein the data is being given in pen drive, in my opinion, no audit can be done on that data because it can always be challenged by the taxpayer because there is no initial calculation of the hash total and subsequent calculation of the hash total.
Correct.
Because it is very clear in terms of guidelines that whenever data is being extracted from a mobile, a copy of that data has to be kept separately, and then the original has to be kept separately, and the hash total has to be taken, and the data has to be extracted from the copy, and the hash total of the copy data and the original data should always match. So, in my opinion, giving on pen drive would not be a valid evidence. If any point is being made, it is beyond because Section 145. Certificate would not be cannot be given in such case. Secondly, if it is being given on email, again, it is on email. The total hash total has to be seen from the data wherein the data is extracted. Again, the hash total has to be seen, and somewhere, if small change has been made in tally data, even though it is there on the email, again the validity question would be there. So, in my opinion, and what if I'm asked by the officers that should we ask the tally data, I always said that don't ask for the tally data because I would only be the first person to challenge the validity of the data. Come to the premises of taxpayer, get the printout, get it signed, and then take it. Otherwise, we can give to cooperate to the officers, but then we have the benefit of challenging the validity of that data at any point of time.
Noted. I have couple of other risks, and it's already 9:57 when trigger came. So some of the points I have brought it for your consideration. Arpit, by next slide. Because the officers are taking this data, can they take the hard disk? Can they clone the entire ERP and do it? What is the risk they have, and especially how will they validate the hash of it? Are there any consequences of it? These are the 2 points I have listed from the DPDP perspective. I only want your consideration. Arpit, by next slide. Firstly, in the DPDP, which is going to, which is already in live, and from May next year onwards, it is enforceable. That means the consequences would come in. See, firstly, what is personal data? Personal data, anywhere you can identify a name of a person, could be employee, customer, vendor, any data where a person can be identified, that is a personal data. So the power of the officer should always be proportional and relevant. We know the officer has a power, but it has to be proportional and relevant. Any tally data taken, that means the officer is in now possession of the personal data. Is DPDP applicable to them? Next slide. Section 17 of the DPDP Act has a relaxation where, if you see 17(2)(b), if an officer is performing a function which is specified under the law for the time being in force, the DPDP Act doesn't come in. Now, the next question that immediately comes in, that okay, fine, at the time of collecting of the information, that officer is under the audit function. Now, what happens to the data after the audit is completed? So we have to now check, does the government has an ability to first question multiple aspects: the legality, necessity, proportionality, non-arbitrariness. When your scope of the audit is audit, you have cloned my hard disk. Cloning of hard disk is not required, or you have taken the data for audit. There are no audit points, or other than RCM, there is no liability. So you have no requirement of any of customer SOWs or vendor documents. So the relied upon documents should be retained only to the extent of the audit paras that have come in. So these are the points that we need to question. Next slide.
No, let me stop you there. The work of the audit department is subject to further audit by the C&AG.
Correct.
So there is no way that the department cannot be held to only rely upon and retain the data that retained ultimately resulted into an audit observation. They have to retain the full thing to ensure that the CAG can verify whether the proper any internal checks and balances for the proper conduct of an audit was actually done. And the working papers of the auditors, that is the officers who are auditing, should also be these data only, so that they can defend themselves of an allegation of not identifying or doing the audit properly. So they need to have that data. Even we do it for our audit clients, right? We keep the audit evidence and audit working papers for a fixed amount of time, irrespective of whether it is a clean audit.
Exactly. So now what is that fixed amount of time? I tried looking at the audit manual. So should the officer delete the data or keep it with him? And if yes, till what point? So I wanted to look from, are there anything in the audit manual or DPDP principle constitutional thing? So we'll quickly go each and every point. First one, next slide. See, nothing is given in the audit manual. When I look at the DPDP, it says there is a purpose limitation and the storage scope limitation. Retain the data as long as it is necessary for the purpose collected. So that means as long as the time specified for the C&AG audit, you retain the data. After that, the data should not be retained, including applicable to the government authorities. So the department now should find a way that how do they safeguard. If someone is not misusing, that means the data collection is proper, but at a later point, someone is not misusing. So once audit is concluded, adjudication is concluded, appeal time limit is excluded, or litigation concluded. So list the points in that hierarchy, and department should find a way to get rid of the data is the first point. Next slide. Audit manual. I have read the Karnataka audit manual and the central audit manual. There is nothing written in that. They did not give anything on retention period, destruction protocol, or including a taxpayer acknowledgement, how it has to be done. So from the legal point, I believe that they have to do something more in it. Next slide. Though DPDP doesn't apply to the department officer, we should place the Justice K.S. Putsami versus Union of India, wonderful judgment where 9:0 has assented this. This generally happens when ego is kind of hurt. In the case of Aadhaar, where fundamental right itself is not questioned, is questioned, saying that, okay, why you do not have a fundamental right about privacy. Now that itself cannot be questioned by the council. So after this judgment, the courts have uniformly held, if you are collecting the data, you necessarily has to prove why you are collecting, the proportionality. So there should be a reasoning that you have the power, the proportionality has to be reasoned, and the purpose has to be linked. Given that you have collected the data, it is your responsibility to safeguard the data. So now it cannot be an indefinite retention of the data. This becomes a constitutional challenge to the department if they do not emphasize a mechanism in which they discard the data. So what should they do? Next slide. Department should find, like I said, I have given the hierarchy of audit, education complete, appeal, litigation, all that. So they should first categorize relied upon evidence and non-relied upon evidence. Relied upon evidence, definitely till the litigation completion period happens, it has to be there. Anything which has to be done with the personal data, they need to find a way to delete it promptly. And the system images definitely have to be purged, is something they have to do. Where is that the risk going to happen is generally anything, a large set of data is copied and there is no audit trail, there is no proof of who is using the system. Tomorrow I transfer, I move to some other place. The junior who is handling all the data is there in the independent systems of the users. So what is happening to that data? Taxpayer has no visibility. That means my information got leaked somewhere. I can file a suit against the department that after giving the information to you, the information got leaked, and making department a party is also likely that it happen. Next slide. Next slide. So what should taxpayer do? First, limit the scope in sharing the information. Like Arpit Bhai said, give the extracted reports rather than giving a full system access. Document whatever has been shared. Always take an acknowledgement. If something is confidential, marking it as confidential and seeking a written data requisition for it. After the audit is completed, should I write a letter asking that delete my data? is something which we need to do. We never have done, we haven't been doing it. In fact, I realized when I was doing an audit of one big vendor, and when he said an requirement, we got a realization of it very late. What is that letter should contain? Next slide, the last slide for today. See, firstly, the purpose of the letter is only to create a document or a trail to protect the confidentiality. You are explicitly saying that there might be a misuse, and I want to limit the misuse, and I want you to also be party to it. See, we should not ask them to delete for sure, because like Unni said, they have their audit retention period. But we should ask them that what is your data security protocol written. So a standard letter, we need to now make it ready. After the audit is concluded, we need to send them asking, delete all non-relied upon document, delete all the personal data. Give us what is your retention protocol, and if you are not using any data, you can return the data. And a point specifically saying that this data has been shared only for the purpose of GST proceedings. And we should always say that this cannot be used beyond your statutory purposes. Is something we need to draft a letter, in my view, and formalize and start sending to all the officers post audit. Even they would become vigilant. So these are all the points for today's session. We've just completed 65 1 and 2. Any points by anyone before we conclude? Arpit bhai.
Yes. So thank you very much, Venubhai. And today we have discussed our 65.1 and 65.2. And when we discuss in our group, it is more about the practical issues and the issues which are arising out of the provision rather than the discussion of the specific provision. And we have discussed very practical issues today also. That what is the scope of audit? Can it be extended to third-party inspection? Can the third-party data be used for conduct of the audit? How is the DPDP Act relevant for audit, and what is the precaution that we need to take? So a very practical discussion which we had today about section 65, and something which we can make a base for the future conduct of audits and how we have to proceed. So thank you very much, Venubhai, and thank you to you for taking the session during the course of your transit from one place to another. As we can see that you are traveling today. So thank you very much to Venuji and all the participants for giving their inputs on this very important section, and which we are facing day in, day out during the year, and something which has become a part of a more detailed investigation, because not everyone is part of the NT Vision, but many of the big clients are mostly part of the audits and for the entire 5 years. So thank you very much to all and the participants also, and we look forward for the next session for section 65 in the coming weekend. Thank you very much.
Yes. In next session, we will try to conclude 65. Yes. Thank you, Arpit bhai. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.